In the world of tech, you've got companies that are famous, and then you've got companies that are infamous. But it's pretty rare to find one that's as powerful, as profitable, and as deliberately mysterious as Palantir. This is a company that lives right at the intersection of power, data, and the state. And it raises this huge question. Have they actually created a modern-day Philosopher's Stone? So let's peel back the layers and see what's really going on.
I mean, if you want to understand just how big Palantir's influence is, you really only need to look at this chart. A wild 600% increase in its stock value in just 5 years. Now, that is not just market hype. That's what it looks like when a company weaves itself into the very fabric of the world's most powerful institutions. So, what on earth are investors buying into? What's the big secret?
While the mystery really starts with the name itself, a Palantir, for all you Lord of the Rings fans out there, is one of those magical seeing stones, basically a crystal ball that lets you see things happening miles and miles away. And look, this isn't just some clever branding, it's the whole idea behind their business, giving their clients a sort of God's eye view of their world.
Okay, so let's pull back the curtain, forget the myths and the crazy market cap for a second. What does Palantir actually do? Well, the answer is in something they call the Data Refinery model.
Think about a massive organization, right? Like the military or a huge global company. They have data everywhere, in spreadsheets, random databases, sensor feeds, you name it. It's a total mess. None of it talks to each other. Palantir software comes in and acts like a giant refinery. It takes all of that data sludge and it turns it into clean, high-value fuel. And that fuel, it's actionable intelligence. Now, this is a really, really important distinction the company always makes. Palantir is not a data broker. They aren't collecting your data and selling it like some other tech giants. No, they're a data refiner. They give their clients the powerful engine, but the client has to bring their own fuel. Palantir builds the system that lets organizations analyze their own data.
And this engine, it basically comes in two main models. On one side, you've got Foundry. That's for their commercial customers, helping big companies do everything from managing supply chains to building better cars. And on the other side, you have Gotham. Yep, named after Batman City. That's the legendary platform they build for defense, intelligence, and law enforcement.
So, no matter which product it is, the process follows these 4 steps. But let's make it real. Imagine they ingest, say, satellite photos and financial records. Then they transform all of that into a single interactive map. Next, they use AI to analyze it for suspicious activity. And finally, they operationalize it by zapping an instant alert to an agent on the ground. That's the whole game, from raw, messy data to real-world action in minutes. But, a tool this powerful, it immediately raises some pretty serious questions about how it's used. And right in the middle of that whole debate is Palantir's very, very unusual founder. And that brings us to what I like to call the Philosopher CEO paradox.
This is Alex Karp, and here's where it gets kind of weird. The guy holds a PhD in philosophy. Not just that, he studied under Jürgen Habermas, one of the most important philosophers of the 20th century. And Habermas is famous for his deep critiques of, you guessed it, state power and surveillance. So how in the world does his star student end up running one of the most sophisticated surveillance tech companies on the planet?
Well, Karp's answer is fittingly a philosophical one. He actually argues that Palantir's software isn't a tool for oppression, but a tool for accountability. He claims that by making all the data transparent and traceable, his software can actually put limits on government power and protect our civil liberties. It's a bold attempt to solve a huge philosophical problem with a purely technical solution. And a lot of people are not buying it. And this really creates what critics call the trust me dilemma. The company is selling this grand philosophical vision of responsible power. But does that vision actually match up with reality? This timeline shows a pretty fascinating evolution. If you go back to 2016, Karp was known for his more skeptical, liberal views. He even spoke out against some hardline government policies. But over the years, he shifted, becoming much more pragmatically aligned with the state. Now he's positioning Palantir to be the absolute bedrock of an America-first enforcement strategy.
And this table just lays out that gap perfectly. So the pitch from Karp is all about built-in privacy guardrails. But the reality, critics say, is that those guardrails are often optional and controlled by the user. He pitches the software as a neutral tool, but others argue it fundamentally changes how governments operate. He talks about philosophical oversight, but the reality is a world of opaque government contracts.
So all of this, it leads to the billion-dollar question, right? If Palantir is navigating all these contradictions and just keeps getting more and more powerful, what's the end game here?
What are they truly trying to build?
From everything we can see, the goal is nothing less than building the blueprint for what they call sovereign AI. The big idea is to become the essential, absolutely irreplaceable AI operating system for the United States and its allies. By locking in these massive, long-term government contracts, they want to become a permanent fixture in the digital infrastructure of the modern state.
Which brings us to this powerful conclusion. The man who studied the critique of power has now become indispensable to the powerful. The philosopher who worried about the overreach of the state has become the state's master architect, literally designing the tools that will shape its future.
Look, Palantir is offering a very powerful, very slick, technical solution to the messy, complicated problem of governing. But it forces us to ask a much older question, one that's now supercharged by AI. Do we want the very architecture of our society designed by private philosophers in Silicon Valley or by public debate? The answer to that is going to decide who gets to write the next chapter.